morning. I swear a lot.
It is 1:34 in the PM, and you're watching or listening to The Foreman. I'm your host, Foreman, and I was struck with the desire, I suppose, to talk about something today, which is performing, I guess, in the weird ways that I do it, because essentially I have two manners in which I am technically, by all technical definition and by technically true, a performer, right? Obviously, I'm a YouTube guy. I'm a person who performs recorded commentary and then edits it and then publishes it. And it's with a comedic twist most of the time. You can decide whether or not you think the comedic twist works or not, but the intention is a comedic twist. That's my bread and butter. That's my main thing. That's my passion. That's what I do. That is my defining feature. Not the only defining feature, but it is probably the biggest one by this point that I choose to define myself is as a performer on YouTube. It's what I enjoy doing, as I just said. The other thing is as a musician, which is not something I was ever expecting to be a thing I do or did or would be. Indeed, since becoming a bassist for Velvet Dead, I've played like 10 gigs. Not 10, maybe 8, I don't know. It's hard to remember, I don't keep track. But the point is, like 10 years ago, I would not have imagined that was ever a thing that I was going to do. That is completely beyond the scope of my expectations for my life, right? I got to the point where I was like, I'm too old, I'm not going to learn an instrument, and I'm never going to perform, and I'd probably be too scared to perform on stage anyway. It's not going to happen. And indeed, back then, I think it would have been physically impossible, but as an adult, as a 30-year-old man, I got to the point where I was like, yeah, no, I can do it. It's going to be difficult, and oh boy was I was terrified on my first one, but I did it. But I'm kind of moving away from / moving too far into the chosen topic of discussion for today. I wanted to talk about being a performer in those two aspects, because there are similarities, but there are also many differences, and I think in many cases people might be interested in getting some perspective on that. I also just want to talk about it because, hey, that's kind of the purpose of Foreman Talks, is to just talk about things. I like to share my thoughts on them and express myself in these fields of thought and topics and such. It's probably what I'm going to do. Now, as the primary means of which I do my performing and as the main passion that I hold, I want to talk about doing YouTube first, because it is, in fact, one of the two things that prompted me to talk about this today. The other is something relating to music, which is very conveniently why it works to talk about these two things. But as a YouTube presenter, I suppose, that's probably the term I would prefer to use. People often say, are you a streamer? And I'm like, no, because I don't stream. But for all intents and purposes, and the general, like, wider thought idea of what that is, which is basically someone who makes content on YouTube and Twitch. Almost said Switch. I really want a Switch. I still haven't got a Switch. I can't play Smash Bros. It upsets me. Or whatever. That is the general perception of what a streamer is just someone who makes content on YouTube and Twitch. But the reality is, a streamer is a live streamer, someone who live streams. I am not a streamer. I do not live stream. I make recorded videos that I edit and publish. There is a difference. So I'm going with YouTube presenter. Or Let's Player. I'm fine with either, but those seem like the more accurate terms. But something struck me about being a YouTube presenter, and it's something that you don't really notice in the early days because it's all kind of new to you, and you're like, your main mental focus is just talking, right? You're like, the first thing is, oh my god, I need to try and be either interesting or funny or engaging or all three over microphone whilst playing this video game. That's tricky. There's a lot involved with that. That's hard, and you do feel it. Like to begin with, when you're first doing it, you're like, I feel like I need to be saying something interesting all the time, which is so not true. It is maybe if you're a streamer, but I've noticed a lot of live streamers like pace themselves. You know, they're not talking constantly for the I don't know, 3 to 5 hours that they do these things. I've seen streamers go for a long time. It's fucking nuts. I don't have that kind of stamina. But it seems to be the case in that, and it's definitely the case to recorded video where it's like, you do not need to be saying something interesting all the fucking time. Sometimes it can be the audio commentary equivalent of small talk, where you're just chatting or you're just making observations, small and large, just saying stuff in general. But to begin with, there's a lot of pressure, so you just babble, you just vomit words, for lack of a better term, and that's how it comes across. And even I sound like that sometimes nowadays, but I've found that when I do that, it's usually because I'm excited. So a lot of my for lack of a better word, discipline in regards to audio commentary falls apart because I'm getting too hype and I'm too excited and I'm too into it, so I just start spewing words and it kind of comes out as nonsense, which, you know, it happens, and there's a nice vibe to that as well. I think, you know, people enjoy seeing enthusiasm. People, even a lot of the time, people prefer seeing positivity to negativity. Not all the time. Many people, and I can understand this, like to see someone absolutely ripping on something and talking about how crap it is. Yeah, I get that, and indeed sometimes I enjoy it, but I feel like, or at least maybe it's the case with my audience, I don't know, typically we do prefer to see something positive. You know, when you're going for something that will provide you with escapism for the day, or, you know, like, oh, I'm going to play a game, like, I don't know, I'm going to play Mount & Blade Warband. It's a pretty dry game, so I think I'm going to have a Let's Play or a podcast going on at the same time. You don't necessarily always want to hear someone whinging the whole time, or getting angry, right? Because getting angry is an elevated state, which kind of, hearing it gets you going as well in some form, like you'll either be getting angry or annoyed, as it were, but it elevates you a bit, and you're not necessarily looking for that when you're playing Mount & Blade, where, you know, it's a fairly slow-paced sandbox strategy management game, but you also lead from the front. I'm not here to talk about Mount & Blade, I'm here to talk about being a presenter, okay? But that's my point. It's, I guess, why I prefer to play games I like, because I don't really like doing videos where I complain, because it just puts me in a bad mood, or not, maybe that's too strong a term, but I don't know, it makes me a bit grumpy if I have to play shit I don't like, because if I'm playing something on the show that I don't like, I have to talk about it in general. So the first thing that's going to pop into mind is, well, I'm going to talk about how much I don't like it, because that is the most prevalent thought at this exact moment. And I often find that in the momentum of commentary, you know, where you're not even thinking about it anymore, you're just letting words flow, you're just talking and it comes out naturally. If I'm playing something I don't like, that momentum carries and rolls, and it forms a massive fucking snowball flying down a cliff, right? Where I just get more and more agitated and more irritated, and something that, as it turns out, wouldn't have even have annoyed me that much in the first place, now really annoys me, because I've worked myself up, I've built myself up, I've lathered myself up, and now I'm just spewing venom about it. And I don't really like doing that because A, like I said, it makes me feel bad, and B, during that time, I usually don't make jokes. I tend to make more jokes when I'm happy. When I'm angry, I stop making jokes because I'm annoyed and I don't want to make a joke, right? But it's, I guess all I'm going to do in regards to this is just talk about what I do, because it takes a while for you to notice the things you do. In fact, I would say your audience would probably notice the things you do before you notice the things you do, even if you edit your own videos. Because I feel like people often view themselves as being a lot more complicated than other people view them. I see myself as having many different facets and many different styles depending on my mood and the game I'm playing and all that jazz. Well, people watching might be like, well, he swears a lot, he does funny voices and has some questionable takes on the characters I like. And that wouldn't be incorrect. That would be an accurate summary, I suppose. But from my perspective, I'd be like, well, no, but I do this and that as well, and I have this. I'm more complex to me than I am to anyone else. And I feel like that's the case for everyone, right? You always perceive yourself as being a bit more nuanced than other people will see you, or in some cases, depending on how narcissistic you may be, you would see yourself as being more complex than other people. We all know that's not true, right? But that might be a thing. I don't know, that's conjecture and it's leaning off topic. But I think what prompted this discussion, or my desire to have this discussion today specifically, was the feeling I get, or how it feels to record different kinds of games, right? So over the past, I want to say like 3 or 4 years now, it's been a while, Project Moon games have been the main thing that I do, okay? So that's Lobotomy Corporation, Library of Ruina, and now Limbus Company, which I'm well fucking set for Limbus Company because we got like 10 more years of it, so that's my job sorted for like another 10 years. Beautiful. I will always have Limbus, which in my mind means I need to treat it with a certain level of respect and put some effort into those videos, right? Like, this is carrying me. I should show my appreciation, right? I feel like that's why a lot of the time the Limbus videos turn out to be a little bit more better quality than the other videos. It's not intentional, absolutely not, but I feel like when I sit down to play Limbus, it's also a case of like, I've been doing Project Moon for fucking ages now, perhaps not as long as other creators in the same field, but I've been doing it for a long time now, and I have a certain mindset that I just go into these with where I'm like, yeah, this is kind of the best stuff I do sometimes. There are exceptions, of course. I think the first episode of Lunacid was one of the best I've ever done. The videos I did with Sweeman on Resident Evil 4 are definitely some of the funniest content on this channel, and I will hear no argument on that because they are just some of the funniest shit. Only like 3 videos, but they're absolute gold. Sweeman is a fantastic co-presenter, or guest, I suppose, as the case may be, because not only is he funny, he's just fucking funny, but he's a great support, right? He sets you up. He's great at setting things up, and then you drive it home, and it's great. It helps that we're friends, obviously. We know each other very well, so we're better at setting each other up and playing off of each other. But he's good at it as well. I've recorded with other friends and been like, this just doesn't quite land. You know, it's just not quite gelling. It's not quite meshing. But pretty much every recording I've done with Luke has been, oh, mwah, glorious, fantastic. But I am wandering off topic once again. A waffle has many divots, you know. But yes, that's what it's like to record the Project Moon games, and for the most part, they've all been fairly similar. I guess Lobotomy Corporation was probably the most unusual, unique of the 3 to record, because there was like visual novel dialogue, as it were, with no audio commentary or voice acting. That's the term, voice acting. Not much of it though, and most of it was in fact managing the facility. And to be frank, that was such a stressful, unbelievable job that that's really all the game needed. But the story in Lob Corp is very good. But my point is, from a presenting perspective, all I did was read some dialogue out loud, not tons, some, and then try and deal with managing a facility, right? And all in all, that loop was pretty good. I remember enjoying it. I remember that being fun, because practically every day brought like a new creature that I needed to figure out, and every completed day brought new lore, which helped carry you forward and be interesting, keep you interested, because you're like, well, what's going to happen next? You know, what's the deal with this Sephira? What's the core suppression going to look like? Etc., etc. Ruiner, I would say, was probably the easiest one to present in the grand scheme of things. From a performance perspective, from an editing perspective, it was a fucking nightmare, and they were also the longest videos I've ever fucking made, I swear. Ruiner videos were ridiculous, like 2 hours a piece, but the actual recording itself was very easy, because I booted up, talk about it, perhaps spin the wheel to get a new nugget in or something, which was always fun, then start the next reception, which would be a bunch of voice-acted dialogue, which I just needed to kind of make comments about. Pretty simple. And then a fight would start, and I'd talk about the fight while fighting, and then the fight would be over, and then we do more or whatever. The problem was the editing, because Ruiner fights, if you take them seriously, are quite slow, because you need to consider every possible move and make the matchups and figure them all out, and editing Ruiner was a fucking nightmare. It just took forever, which I don't even know how I did it, considering I was working at that time as a water treatment engineer and was often traveling halfway across the country to do jobs, like leaving home at 6 and coming home at 8, and then I would somehow manage to edit a Ruiner video, and for the life of me, I don't know how I managed it, but I did. I don't want to do it again though, not because of Ruiner, but because of how much time that took. Oh my god. But yeah, Ruiner was fairly easy to present. The hardest part about that was the fucking audience. Limbus, I would say, isn't the easiest, but it's a nice middle ground. The editing isn't too difficult, frankly, because combat in Limbus is very simple. I mean, you pick one of 2 moves available to each character and use them on an available slot. I don't know, there's no card management or light management or anything like that. It's very simple. And it also means I don't have to show too much of the thought of the slotting process in slotting in attacks before actual combat starts. I can cut most of that out in editing because, frankly, it doesn't matter that much. Yes, it does matter from the perspective of, are you playing properly, but I've long since stopped giving a shit if people think I'm playing properly. Truly do not care. So I edit most of that out. I'll put it in when I'm playing a new class and I'm like, oh, I could do with a bit of guidance on this, or So I'll include this so people can see what I'm actually doing. But for the most part, I don't fucking bother. Although there is a fun thing in Limbus, which was what I was doing for Canto 6, which was editing together the combat to be very, very quick, but flash stylish, you know. Very, very, very quick fade cuts, so they're almost smash cuts, but they're a little cleaner and smoother than just a hard cut, to different clashes and attacks and staggers and group combats and stuff to make it very presentable, right? Bump up the volume a bit so that the music is louder, so that you get all of that, and that's very enjoyable. I actually quite like editing Limbus, considering I don't like editing, right? At the end of the day, I actually still don't like editing Limbus because I don't like editing anything. But out of all the things I edit, Limbus is pretty alright. And editing is the hardest part of this job, I'd say. So, yeah, Limbus is alright. It's not too bad overall in terms of making videos out of it. I guess it's why one of the reasons why I'm always pleased when a new Canto comes out, because I'm like, cool, we can do this for a while. It's why I hate it when the Intervalos come out, because those aren't voiced and now I have to voice them, which not only hurts my throat but requires more editing, because if I fuck up a line I have to cut around it. But I mention all of this, I talked about all of this simply to say that there is a fairly consistent presentation style across the Project Moon games that have been made so far as of the 25th of November 2024. I'm really looking forward to Project Moon releasing a new game, but I have no idea when they'll do that. Point is, it's always been a very consistent style. Because to be fair, other than LobCorp, Project Moon have kept it fairly fucking consistent. Like, Olympus's combat is essentially a variation on Ruinous combat. And the gameplay model, aside from going from a normal paid video game to a live service model, is essentially the same. Dialogue, cutscenes, then combat. It's very, very, like, you know, ignoring the acquisition of characters and attacks and stuff, which is different between the two games, but the core of it is pretty simple. Therefore, the presentation style of the two games has been pretty similar, which has allowed it to maintain consistently. And luckily, it's a presentation style I like. Or maybe it's such a Stockholm Syndrome situation, and I've done it so much that I've forced myself to like it. Who can truly say? But either way, I like it. And that's good. That's a good part of presenting a YouTube channel, is to find games you enjoy presenting. It is important. This brings me to the next one. We've just started doing Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. We just finished Lunacid, so I'm not going to talk about Vampire the Masquerade because I've literally just started doing it, and I don't think I can provide a comprehensive description of what it's like to perform that game, because I've only done one, and I gotta be honest, it was a bit all over the place for me because that game is weird, but whatever. I'd rather talk about Lunacid instead, for the moment. Lunacid, obviously, for those of you who don't know, is a sort of retro-styled first-person, I hesitate to say dungeon crawler, because it's not really a lot of dungeons as such, but that style, as it were, first-person dungeon crawler. You've played Oblivion or Skyrim, you've at least got an idea in your head of what it looks like, but more mysterious, less information is given to you off the bat. It's a lot harder, you know, like it's a retro-styled first-person dungeon crawling kind of experience. And it's a game I very much enjoyed recording because everything was mysterious and had magic and wonder, right? Like, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what was going to happen when I got there. I didn't know what I was going to find when I got there. Could have been anything. Could have been a snail. Could have been an octopus. Who the fuck knows? Sadly, there were no octopi in Lunacid, but, well, I don't know, if you count those things in the forest canopy that fly around, they probably have 8 limbs. That technically counts. Anything with 8 limbs is an octopus, okay? Spider, land octopus. Or is everything with 8 legs a spider? So would an octopus be a sea spider? It's something for the biologists to figure out. Either way, I am joking, by the way. Please don't post a comment saying, actually, Foreman, fucking spiders aren't land octopi, they're arachnids. Yeah, I know, alright? I know. I do. Trust me. Believe me, I do. Weirdly, I know it might blow your mind, but I do actually know that. I was doing a thing called a joke. It was a bit. Don't know if you've noticed. That's the bit I don't enjoy about being a presenter, is when I do a bit, and people are like, actually, Foreman, and I'm like, no, I was quite clearly joking, thank you. But I ramble, I digress. Yes, I enjoyed Lunacid for the adventure, for the mysteriousness of it, the vibe, the soundtrack, the sound effects, everything about it was very enjoyable to play. And that sense of wonder lent itself to a very enjoyable form of commentary in which I'm just simply getting to respond to my surroundings, and whilst exploring such areas, it often lets my mind wander into silly places to make silly jokes, which I find creates for more funny videos. Like, it's more comedic, and it's a bit more zany, and like, you see something new, like, what the fuck is that? And then you poke it and it gets really angry, like, oh fuck, and you run away. And it's fun, it's enjoyable. I like doing that. The editing is also fun because when the commentary is more zany and there's more stuff going on visually as well, it becomes less mind-numbing to edit because silly things are happening. And it's more to keep you engaged. The more astute among you might sense where this might be going with the next one, but we'll wait till we get there. I liked recording and editing Lunacid very much. Very enjoyable. That is one of those games that are an absolute joy to make a series out of, and one of those ones where even the more worky aspects of this job barely feel like work. It's all just a pleasure. It's all just fun. It's all just enjoyable. Big win. This brings me to the last one that we're currently doing, and people might be wondering why I'm doing this instead of doing that, and I think I might be able to provide some context for that. But the last one is Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney that we're currently doing at the moment. We're doing the first one. Now, I need to preface this straight away because I think I think Metal Gear alert signs just went above everyone's heads, complete with the sound effect. So I need to get this clear. Phoenix Wright's really good, right? Phoenix Wright 1, I've only played Phoenix Wright 1, and I've heard the later ones are better. But Phoenix Wright 1 is really good, okay? The dialogue is fantastic. The visuals are appealing and colorful. I love the relationships between pretty much every character, really. I love the fact that how well Phoenix and Mia get along together, and that Maya. I love how Phoenix and Maya get along together, and the fact that she calls him Nick. And I don't know, that's just a really fun relationship they have going. Love the characters. Court is very fun. Hunting for clues gets a bit dry, but, you know, it's whatever. It's all build up for Court. You can't spend the entire game in Court, or Court would be boring, so it makes sense. Soundtrack's alright, but nothing to write home about, I suppose. Overall, a great game. But here's the problem, right? Here is the problem, and this might surprise some people. I absolutely fucking despise recording it. I feel so bad for saying it, but you guys know me, I will be quite blunt. And I feel like I especially can be blunt on this occasion because this is not the game's fault, and it's not due to a lack of quality on the game's part, right? It's not me sitting here saying Phoenix Wright sucks, I hate it, because that's patently not true. I like Phoenix Wright, I like the characters, I like the game, I like the dialogue, I like the writing, I like all of it. But I hate recording it. I hate recording it. I hate recording it so much. I always put it off. There is more reason why we had Lunacid double bills than just because I wanted to play Lunacid more. Now, don't get me wrong, I did want to play Lunacid more because I fucking loved it. But also, I was like, I would sit at my desk, right? And it's like, okay, it's recording time. It's around lunchtime. I've just had lunch, you know. I always record after lunch. And I'm like, yeah, today's, I need to put up Phoenix Wright for tomorrow, so I need to record Phoenix Wright today. And I'd sit there and I'd just be like, I really don't want to record it. I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered. And let me explain why, rather than just saying, oh, I couldn't be bothered, right? Phoenix Wright, let's talk from the recording aspect first, right? The game doesn't have voice acting, which, you know, is kind of good for a very talky voice actory presenter, I suppose, because, you know, there's stuff to play with there. That was kind of the fun of LobCorp even, which was I did a lot of the voices myself. And over time, I've played games where I would do voice acting and stuff, and that has developed into the point where quite a few people in my audience appreciate my voices. They're like, these are very fun. Some of them are even kinda good. And I'm like, that's more than I was expecting. Marvelous. I guess this is a bit we can run with, you know, we do some voices and whatever. Fun. But here's the thing. Most games don't have as much dialogue as Phoenix Wright. Phoenix Wright is actually nothing but dialogue. It is the most visual novel game I've played on the show, and that's fine. That is the game. There is no misunderstanding about what the game was going to be, and I was aware that that is how the game would be played. I wasn't expecting a third-person action sequence, right? Or first-person shooter sequence, or what have you. I knew that this is what the game would be going into it, but I underestimated how much dialogue there would be and how much faffing around there would be, and I also underestimated how long the investigations would be, because in my mind I was like, well, the court is the focus, so we're going to be in court like all the time, yeah? No, not really. Court is more like a boss fight in a game that doesn't have gameplay, really. Point and click barely qualifies as gameplay in this context. Now, all of these things are not things that are me saying, oh, Phoenix Wright is a bad game. No, like I said, it's great. I love it. It's a fantastic game. But recording it hurts. It hurts because there's nothing to do. I'm here to play video games. I'm here to push buttons, and don't get me wrong, I like a narrative-focused experience, certainly, but I can't have just narrative, or I'd be doing audiobooks. Right? Surely. Or I'd just be doing visual novels all the time. I know there's a market for it. I'm well aware that there is a market for, videos of Let's Players just doing visual novels, because it's like an audiobook but with funny commentary attached. Almost like director's commentary, except it's not the director, it's some random schmuck experiencing it for the first time. So you kind of get that blend of like, director's commentary and also a reaction or reaction / let's play video, right? And you mix that together, and that makes for an interesting vibe. I don't doubt it, but I can't do it too much, right? I'm gonna finish Phoenix Wright because I said I would, and you guys voted for it, and I refuse to not finish it, as it were. It needs to be done, but it's taking a while because I need to G myself up to get back in, because if I was playing it by myself, I would have finished it like a month ago and I would have enjoyed it. But because I'm recording it, it's not that I'm not enjoying the game. When I'm recording, I'm enjoying the game. That's the thing. The game is great, but I hate presenting it so much. I hate it. It's so bad. And it's not the game's fault. I must be clear on that. I know it's such a weird balance when talking about these kind of things over videos, because you have to reaffirm a certain point to make sure people get it, that it's drilled in, because people either don't listen or forget. It's something we all do. I'm not accusing anyone of that or saying people are dumb. I've done it as well. It's just a thing that happens, but that does happen. But then you get the people who are listening and do remember, and they go, stop saying that. And I'm like, I have to say it over and over, or some people don't get it, and then they shout at me. And then they go talk to their friends and say, this guy's such an asshole. And then that spreads, and then the entire world hates me. And then I have one subscriber left, and it's Sweetman. And even he's like, I don't know, man. Your takes on Phoenix Wright are fucked. And then we're not friends anymore. And then I'm not in a band, and then I have to go be a retail worker again. And I might have to do that eventually anyway, but I don't wanna. That shit sucks. So that's why I have to repeat myself over and over, you understand? But it is the most awkward thing about this Phoenix Wright series for me at the moment, and it's one of the more awkward moments in a presenter's career, where it's like, people like this. This is a good thing, right? There is literally no downsides to doing this because people like it and it's good. So why do I fucking hate it? And the answer is, I hate the presentation style required to present the video. Once again, nothing wrong with the game, but the way I have to present it in order for it to work, because, I don't know, like, what am I supposed to do? Play Phoenix Wright and not read out the lines? Like, what else? I guess I could, but what else is there to talk about, really? Everything is based on what's being said, and the only reason I don't do that in Limbus is because the characters are already saying the lines, albeit in a different language, but they are doing it, so words are being said. I feel like I kind of need to say the lines in Phoenix Wright. I don't know, there's no real way around it except for just get it done. But if anyone's like, oh, are you going to continue on to the second one, or oh, are you going to do extra stuff in Phoenix Wright 1, if there is extra stuff? No. Absolutely not. No, nothing against the game, but no, I can't. If there is a series I'm doing where I have to push myself to record it, something's wrong. That's it, really, isn't it? But why I'm talking about this is to not find an opportunity to tell you guys that I dislike recording it, because frankly, it's information you don't need to know. But I'm saying it in this context because it's relevant and because I don't like to lie. But the current series is at the moment encapsulate a fairly broad summary of what it's like to be a presenter, where you get the games that are alright, they're decent, and I'm not talking about the quality of the game itself here. I'm talking about the presentation experience, the experience of presenting it. How does it feel to present it? You've got the PM games I'm doing, which are all right from a presenting experience. Not too bad. I would say leaning more towards... They're close to the middle, but leaning towards good, right? Leaning more towards good. They can be very enjoyable. They can be very enjoyable to present. So... that's fine, and it's kind of lucky that that's my bread and butter, like I talked about before. Then you get Lunacid, where you're like, oh, this is just fun. This is just a gem. And I think that's kind of why I stopped Lunacid where I did, because I was like, I don't want to tarnish this. This will forever be exactly what it was, and I really enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun, and it was great, and I loved it. Those are the moments in which work becomes not work. Like... at all, really. It's all just a joy. Like, I would sit here for 2.5 hours playing Lunacid, and I'd be like, I really would like to record more, but I do have to edit it today, so we should probably stop here. But then I'd edit it, and I'd be like, this is fun. Watching back the adventure I had today. Like, there's a joy to that. There is a genuine joy to that, and that was the beauty of it. And then you get games like Phoenix Wright, where it's like, this is a brilliant game, but I hate presenting it, and presenting it is an honest-to-God chore. It is just a chore, which sucks, because you don't want, in a profession which you choose to do at the cost of not making nearly as much money as you would in any other profession, doing something you don't want to do is not great. Second of all, people like it, and I feel bad about laying people down. Third of all, I always fear that my distaste for the presentation style will come across in the commentary, where it seems like I'm just not engaging with it. And the annoying thing is, I'll say something like this and people go, oh yes, I could see that you were uneager, and I'm like, no, I edited that video and I can tell you my performance was genuine, right? I can tell it's not poking through there, but I worry if it goes on for too long, I would get to the point where it would start to poke through, Which is why I want to end at Phoenix Wright 1, and it's also why I'm not doing long videos on it. A, because it fucks up my throat, because it's just too much talking, and the different voices definitely add more strain. But B, I don't want to phone it in. I do not want to phone it in at all. Even in a video I would rather not be performing for, I don't want to phone it in, because that's not... no one benefits from me phoning it in. No one. So that's why Phoenix Wright videos tend to be like 35 to 45 minutes, because I'm like... this is as much as I can do before getting seriously fatigued. So, yeah. And I should say, this sucks, but I might fiddle with the candidates of the next wheel. Not permanently, not for all future wheel spins, but on the next one to be like, if any of these are a visual novel, they're out. Because I'm not doing it. I can tell I don't enjoy it. And what's going to happen is I'll do 1 or 2 videos and go, nope, I'm not doing this again, and we spin the wheel again. And then the people who voted for the game that was just got voted for that was a visual novel will feel cheated because I didn't give it its fair dues. I think I'll need to doctor the candidates just a little bit more now to ensure that we're not getting shit that isn't going to go anywhere. Like I said, I'm going to beat Phoenix Wright 1 because I should, and because I want to, and because I'm gonna. But it is a chore. It's a chore. It really is. But those are the 3 types that seems to be encompassing my overall experience presenting in YouTube at the moment. Like Hades was a Lunacid, as it were. Hades was just a joy to play and explore and find stuff out, and the characters were voice acted, so it kind of had that Project Moon aspect to it as well in terms of the presentation, where I could sit back and let the characters actually fucking talk and then respond to them rather than saying their lines all the time. I definitely prefer responding to characters rather than talking as characters, I think. I don't mind talking as characters sometimes, but not the whole time. I don't know, it's a weird balance, and sometimes it just depends on the game, and it depends on the vibe, the aesthetic. All these things can come into play. But, yeah, that's the more like practical experience of being a YouTube presenter, where it's like, it's like if you're working retail, for instance. Today you're on tills. Oh, I fucking hate tills. Today you're stocking the shelves. Oh, that's fine, I guess. Today you're in the back moving boxes around. Great, I'm not on the shop floor. That's my favorite, You get this stuff in practically every job. barring some exceptions. Aside from that, I'd say the main experience I have as a presenter is forgetting that I'm in any way significant to anyone out there and that my opinion matters to some people. That's probably the part that I struggle a lot with, is forgetting that to some people, and not many, I assure you, but to some people, I am considered to be a person of some influence. And that is something I have not adjusted to. Because my entire life, I've very much been a person who's like, hey, I'm present, but I'm kind of not here, right? Like, I always saw myself as being not significant in the social context I was in. I would often stay quiet. I don't often say hi to people. I speak when spoken to a lot of the time. There are some exceptions. Obviously, with friends, people I'm very comfortable with, I'll go up and talk to them. But for the most part, throughout my entire life, I was always very speak when spoken to. It might have been drilled into me through various external influences, but that's a whole nother conversation that would probably take a while. Point is, the idea that people would be expecting me to talk to them, I guess, and to initiate conversation is something I've always struggled with and can't do. And to expound upon that, the idea that people would care what I have to say is also something I am not used to. And the fact that people would respond and react to the things I have to say is something I'm not used to. I understand the concepts behind it. I don't go out and say whatever the fuck I want and then someone responds and I go, why you mean? Because I do understand the concept of, well, you can say whatever you want, but everyone else has the right to respond to it. I get that. I will call people out on being assholes, though. Because, you know, you have the right to respond to anything I say, but common courtesy would dictate you should at least be polite about it, especially if I'm not being an asshole. But that's something the internet really struggles with, so I'll continue to fight it, probably until I die at the dear old age of 34. Due to the stress, but I understand that that's an aspect of the internet. But yeah, it's weird being someone that people consider significant because I spent my life not being that. So now I am that, and it's weird. It's a lot of adjusting. Most people imagine, I suppose, when doing such things, that they would adjust to it very well. That they would just sort of, you know, there'd be a small adjustment period and then they just have the mindset. And maybe some people do. Maybe some people are more adaptable or have that inside them their whole lives and it kind of comes out when the right prerequisites are met. I don't think I'm one of them. I think I've adapted to this relatively well, but there was a long, stressful period between the start of LobCorp and now where I adjusted to being someone in any kind of spotlight that people were in any way interested in listening to. And I guess in some cases I still struggle with it now because it's tricky, it's hard, it's different. I don't know. People say shit to you and you go, why the fuck do you care what I think? And then you realize, oh, because they watch my show, because I'm a presenter and that means my words carry some weight to them. And you just don't get used to that, I don't think. Maybe some do, but I don't. This brings me quite succinctly on to the second part of this discussion I wanted to have today. This might be a slightly longer Foreman Talks, which is good. I always worry these are a little too short, and when I get a good flow going, I like to keep them going. But I wanted to talk about being a musician, which I have to say with quotation marks, because I've only been a bassist for like, well, a year and a bit, maybe. Probably, I don't know. I have a poor judge of time. I'm a very poor judge of time and directions. Bad at both of those, but that's something else. Yeah, being a musician, because that is something I always fantasized about as a teenager and young adult, you know, because I was way into music when I was a teenager. Like when I was early teenage years, I started listening to System of a Down, and then from there, I started listening to all kinds of alternative music. You got Slipknot, Korn, Disturbed, Metallica, Iron Maiden, you know, and from there it would progress to bands like My Chemical Romance, Rise Against, a lot of the sub-bands that were very big around that time, you know. Seether, we listened to Seether with caution, right? Listen to Seether with caution, because if you're in a bad place, it can give you that kind of emotional release by hearing someone else singing it. But if you listen to it too much, you will just stay in that bad place and you don't go anywhere. So exercise caution on that one. Also, some of those songs just fucking cringe, but you know, that's that and this is this. Point is, the idea of being a performer was always musician even, was always something I admired from a young age. And indeed, upon leaving secondary school, all the friends I hung out around with during that time seemed to be in bands. I was friends with Sweetman back then, and he was in a band back then, at the tender age of 16, and now, at the tender age of 31, he is still a musician, still doing bands, and still gigging. He's been doing it for a long time. Practically half his life, maybe more than half his life. I think he was maybe gigging before he was 16. I don't know. I can't remember every detail about the guy's life. But he's been doing it a while. And he was not the only one. There were a lot of people around me at that time who were, you know, musicians and in bands and stuff. And it's the very, like, cliched thing of like, yeah, and all the girls really liked the guys who were in the bands and stuff. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I were in a band and I'd be cool and the girls would think I was cool? Yeah, but the point is, I never really did anything with it. I tried picking up guitar a bit when I was a teenager, but it just didn't go anywhere. I'd like to try that again, actually. I'm not thinking I'd ever turn out to be like fucking Slash or something, but learning some stuff on guitar would be pretty fun. I'm gonna stick to bass for now because I'm still shit at it, so best to focus on one thing, but thoughts for the future. But the point is, when I was a teenager, the idea of being in a band and being a musician and playing gigs was some kind of far-off mystical dream that could never happen, like being a fucking astronaut or something. And indeed, at that time, as much as I would have liked to, I never truly believed it was a thing that could be done. Like, it just did not seem possible. It was like, no, that's unrealistic. Don't worry about it. Like, daydream about it a bit, sure, you know, as the brain does, but actually attempting to pursue this is pointless. It's not going to happen. Fast forward like 13 years later, and, you know, I still had a strong appreciation for music and admiration for musicians and all that, and still hung around with someone who is in multiple bands, but I was never really thinking to myself like, oh yeah, man, I would really like to be in a band. I was just like, oh, well, you know, it's cool. Bands are cool, like, whatever. But I remember doing a job with Sweetman in London, and on our way to get some materials for the job, we were joking about how, like, we're just gonna make a fucking sexy-ass goth band and be really fucking cool and mysterious. Like, it's a joke, you know, it's all a bit. But, like, yeah, we're gonna do that, and yeah, and we're like, yeah, that sure would be silly. And then during the job, it was like a full house renovation, so the owners were not in. They were staying somewhere else because the whole fucking house is being renovated. So we put on music while we worked, and he put on the Birthday Massacre, who are another goth band, who are really good, by the way. If you're interested in goth music, go listen to the Birthday Massacre. It's really, really good. I need to listen to more of them myself. And I was like, this shit's really good. And he was like, yeah, it is. And I was like, yeah, that really is good. And we were just kind of chatting, half jokingly, I realized by this point. At the time, I thought it was jokingly, but not quite. Half jokingly about forming a band. We didn't come up with a name or ideas for songs or anything. We just talked about the concept. And then I want to say, like, can't remember, it was either the next day or a week later, Luke was like, all right, so I talked to Harry and he's on board, and we're going to start a goth band. We want you to be the bassist. And I was like, but I've never played a fucking bass. And he's like, well, you'll learn. You'll learn. And from there, the rest is history. He came up with the name while I was away on holiday. And I was like, yeah, it sounds good to me. I came back and he was like, all right, my sister-in-law has agreed to lend you her bass. I've already written like 8 songs. Here are the bass lines. I'll go over them with you once now, just so you get the idea. And then you go home and practice them, okay? And I was like, got it. Cool. And then, you know, eventually, obviously, gave his sister-in-law the bass back, which is very nice of her to lend to me. And I bought my own bass, because I was like, well, I'm not expecting her to supply me a bass for the entirety of my time in this band. That's not very fair. So, bought my own. The black bass I've got around here somewhere. I think it's still in the case from the last gig, actually. I haven't practiced recently. I probably should. Yeah. I got my own bass. Very happy with it. Cheap bass, but, you know, still a nice bass. And from then on, I was just playing gigs. First one was fucking terrifying, even though it was a tiny, tiny, tiny gig in a tiny, tiny bar filled with people we mostly knew. You know, it was like 16-year-old's first gig, basically, which is what I needed. I was basically 16-year-old first musician band gig time. I was that kid, except 30. Or 29, I think I was at the time. But, yeah. So I needed that initial experience of like, all right, get on stage, play the songs, understand that everything will be fine, and then the rest of them will be easy. And honestly, it did kind of go that way. We had a shit one in Wisbech after that, but Wisbech is shit, so I wasn't expecting much, frankly. And then a couple in Norwich, which were pretty decent. And I will say up to those Norwich gigs, right? Like probably after both gigs in Norwich, because we played the same place twice. Very nice venue, actually. I think is it Brickmakers, Bricklayers? I can't remember what it's called exactly, but very nice venue. Like the place a lot. The owner's an absolute gem. He's super cool. Yeah, that's a really, really good venue. I really like the place. But what I didn't have any particular passion for was the actual performance in of itself. Standing on stage and playing bass didn't do anything for me, really. I think partially because of nerves and also partially because I couldn't play my instrument properly because I've been playing for like 3 months. So the whole time I was on stage, I was staring at my fretboard because I couldn't play bass properly. So I had to devote every iota of my being in those moments when stood on stage playing bass because it was too difficult, because it was something I wasn't good at yet. So I wasn't exactly in love with performing because I wasn't really looking at the crowd. I wasn't moving. I wasn't singing. I wasn't doing anything. I was staring at my bass, right? And maybe this has something to do with it, or maybe it's just a coincidence. But for those first few gigs, the room weren't exactly popping off. You know what I mean? Like, people weren't rude or anything like that, but they weren't on the edge of their seats, and there weren't any seats. They weren't on the edge of their feet. You know, it was pretty fucking. It was fine. For like the first 4 gigs of a band, that's pretty standard. Like, I was not expecting everyone to be holding up their lighters and shit like that. This was within my expectations for like, okay, this is like our 4th gig as a band. People aren't going to be coming in with signs and merch. That's not logical. That's not realistic. We're not going to be playing festivals and stadiums by our 4th gig. Someone on my Discord, right? I was like, oh, hey guys, we used to play Dokapon regularly, and I was like, yeah, I'm in a band now, and they're like, and I've got a gig, and they're like, where is it? And I was like, oh, some bar in this place. And I went, oh, so not a real gig then? And I'm like, what the fuck did you expect? Like, it sounded really like snarky, and I'm like, what, did you think I was going to be at Wembley? Is that what you thought? You thought I'd picked up a bass for 2 minutes and I was going to be playing fucking Madison Square Garden or something? Like, this is the standard procedure for bands who don't just get signed immediately, and most bands don't get signed immediately. Like, this is normal. I don't know. I think I let that bother me way more than I should have, but it did really bother me because I was like, fuck you, I've just made a big decision in my life to try something new, and all you can say is, oh, it's not a cool gig though, is it? And I'm like, of course it's not. Who do you think I am? Regardless, gonna try and not let that one affect me anymore. But yeah, that was the initial experience with gigging, and I have to admit I was very blasé about it. I liked the experience of going out to these places and seeing all these places, and there were other bands playing, and they were super cool, and I enjoyed watching them. I've seen some great ones, like Wicker, and there was a girl and her band who were on during one of those gigs, and she was pretty cool, but I can't remember her name. I know I posted it in the comments for a Limbus video because I had just played the gig at that time, but I can't remember her name. That's really annoying. It's not coming to me. Whatever, more people will have watched that Limbus video than they would this video, so they would get the information more from there, I suppose. But yeah, there were some cool ones. Chasing Ophelia, which was funny because I played Lunacid, and Ophelia is a character in that game, so that added a fun twist to my perception of that video game. But Chasing Ophelia were cool. Gigged with them a couple times because they were really cool guys. So yeah, all of that aspect, going to these places and seeing these people, was great. But the actual performing itself, in of itself, I could take or leave. Until we got to, I'd say until Middlesbrough. We played a gig in Middlesbrough, which was a long fucking drive away, right? A long ass drive. For Britain. For America, this would be considered the next town over, but for Britain, it was a long drive. So we got an Airbnb there, so we could stay overnight. But we played the gig, and the setup was an absolute fucking disaster, right? Like, we ran over like 20 minutes after we were supposed to start because sound check just wasn't working. And I stood on stage, turned to some guy who, bless his heart, this was like coolest guy I've ever met, because all he did was just try and help us, and I absolutely love him for it. And then afterwards he gave us brownies. He was like, hey, I made these fucking brownies, would you like a brownie? I'm like, yeah, I would, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I turned to him as he was stood nearby, desperate to help, and I was like, I turned to him and I said, I wish I was important enough for someone to shoot me right now. And he was like, and I was like, don't worry about it, man, it's fine. It's just really awkward standing on stage with all these people in front of you and you're not starting, you know, because there are technical problems. And my bass was set up and sorted. I was ready to go. And I should say, that's not because of me. I don't know how to set up a stage. Luke and Harry do that, so I'm not claiming credit. But I was ready to go. Which means I was stood there holding my bass in front of the whole place, and they're all staring at me, and I'm like, I ain't the fucking guy, I just play bass. I don't know shit, right? They're over there fiddling with the fucking PA. I don't know. But after that, and when we actually got to start playing, that was one of the first gigs where I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun though, right? People in the room are into it, people are dancing, the sounds just sounds better, right? Like, Luke's vocals are really coming in, and the backing track sounds great, and Harry's throwing some nice, cool stuff on the guitar over the tracks to really make it pop. And that was one of the first gigs where I was like, that was actually pretty fun. I kind of liked doing that. That was pretty enjoyable. The next one was Bury St. Edmunds, which is the hometown of our friends in Chasing Ophelia, and they invited us over there to play a gig with them, which was super nice of them, by the way. And can I say, that place in Bury St. Edmunds, the Hunters Club, I think it's called, I can't remember, best place I've ever played. That place is so cool. Love that place. The guy running the gig, as it were, I'm not going to name names, but he was super cool, super nice to us, like, best guy ever, like, absolute wonderful bloke. The audience there, it was a very passionate scene, so everyone was super into it, and everyone was very supportive, but we got on stage and played, and people loved it, even to the point where Luke and his girlfriend came up with a mini, tiny little dance for, Cassette 666, that's the one, yes, they came up with a dance for Cassette 666. And I remember I was like kind of focusing on playing bass, but Cassette 666 is really easy to play on bass, so I kind of didn't have to focus quite so much. And I looked up during the chorus, and everyone was doing the little dance. Everyone in the room was doing the little dance because Buffy was in the audience and she got them to do it, basically, which was amazing. But that was a gig where I started to sing more, but not on a microphone, because I didn't have any intention of doing so. I was like, look, I'm only just a bassist and I'm not a singer, okay? Recorded vocals are not the same as live vocals. You may think like, oh, I've done karaoke, I could probably sing. Do you know how different it is to sing a song entirely of your own making with no lyric prompts in front of you? If you fall out of time, you are out of time, and it sounds awful. It sounds terrible. It sounds so bad. I recognize the struggles of being a vocalist, right? Like, at no point was I ever going to downplay the what is required for Sweetman to do his part of the gig, right? Singing is hard, not just because it's not just singing. It's singing, it's making sure you're at the right tone, trying to hear yourself over everything. And 99% of bands, if they just stand there, it's not very fun. It's kind of the front man's job to move around and get people going, and he has to do that while singing. And not losing his place in the song, and also remembering those lyrics off the top of his head, bearing in mind the dude's in 3 bands, including this one. So, yeah, I had no intention of being like, yes, I'm just gonna fucking muscle in there and just start singing and whatever. They want me to. Luke and Harry wanted me to, but I was like, no, I'm not ready. I'm absolutely not ready. I can't sing and play bass at the same time. It pulls my brain in 2 different directions. I can't do it. So, but I was starting to train myself, and now I was starting to train myself by singing certain songs whilst playing off mic. And I was also thinking that it might have like the yawn effect, where if someone sees me sing, they're more likely to sing as well, sing along. Don't know how effective that is. I didn't exactly go around to the audience and ask, but multiple reasons where I was like, yeah, I'm just going to stand here and sing, because no one can hear me anyway. The gig's are loud. You can't hear someone if they're not on a microphone. It's that simple. But that was a really fun gig. Everyone really liked it. We went outside. People were talking to us like, oh, I love the gig. Oh, yeah. And then we took pictures with people and stuff, and I took pictures with like 2 different people, and I was like, oh my god, people wanted to take pictures with me. That's never happened. That, like, beyond, you know, friends being like, oh, let's gather around for a picture or whatever. I mean, strangers being like, oh my god, can we get a picture with you? And I went, oh, ooh, that's never happened. That was pretty cool. Finally, though, and this brings us to the most recent gig, and I swear I'll stop talking about this and we can finish for the day, was the gig in Manchester. Once again, a long drive away from where we're based, but whatever. Long journey. We get down there, and we arrive at the place, and the venue is essentially a little hole-in-the-wall bar. A nice place. It was a nice place. Honestly, I liked it a lot, but it was essentially a hole in the wall, and I was like, okay, I'm not expecting much. I wasn't expecting much anyway, but I'm not expecting much. Maybe 5 or 6 people. I don't know. A small amount of people will show up, and it'll just be a small, chill gig, right? Nothing major. And there's nothing wrong with that. A small, chill gig is absolutely fine. I should point out that Velvet Dead was not made for the purpose of chasing stardom. It was made for the purpose of playing gigs, and we're playing a gig. That's what we came here for, so that's what we're doing. No complaints beyond that. And I should point out that at this level, as it were, we don't get paid to play gigs. This is not money making at all. It is all 100%, what's the term? A loss. It's all a financial loss, 100%. Now, to be fair, I went to the bar to get drinks, and the dude was like, oh, you're playing tonight, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, cool, you get a discount. Nice. They didn't have to do that. Most places don't bother, so I appreciate that very much. And he was like, yeah, just pay me. You don't have to leave a tip. And he walked away, and with his back turned, I gave him a tip. Because I was like, yeah, fuck you. Have some money. You give me a discount, I'm going to avoid the discount and give you the money instead. Take that, idiot. So I got him, definitely. But yeah, point is, I'm definitely waffling too much. We played the gig, and I did the thing where I was singing, you know, but not into a microphone. But the beginning of the gig was, I'd say the first 4 songs, people were alright, but they weren't like super into it. They were just hanging out, which is fine. That is what I go into every gig expecting, is that people will just stand there and kind of absorb the music, as it were. It might not get them going. They might not even like it that much, but it's an experience. They're there to see music. They're getting music. Right? That's what we're expecting. We're bantering a bit in between songs, more than usual, I'd say. I'm joining in more than usual as well. But we're bantering a bit, and it's all whatever. But I'm doing the thing where I'm singing despite not being on mic. And Luke, who sees an opportunity, because he is an opportunity-seeing young man, sees me singing and flounces over, because he's all dolled up, and he's like doing his big like presenting like good evening darlings and all that, kind of Asterion, like, you know, if you've played Baldur's Gate 3. Not exactly the same, because that's not Luke, but he's got a little bit of it going, even though he hasn't played Baldur's Gate 3. But that's fun, and that's part of the vibe, you know. We're not just delivering music, we're also delivering a vibe. Me and Harry are a little more informal, which I actually think kind of creates a fun contrast with Luke, because he's all like, yes, and then we're like, parlez-vous français, and people appreciate that, you know. But it does lead to a funny thing. I swear I'll get to the point in a minute. It's a funny thing that's happened more than once, is that Harry is too used to being a metalcore guitarist and not a goth guitarist. So we'll get to the last song, and Luke's been talking to the audience in between the songs all the time, like, oh yes, my dad, yes, so glad to see you all tonight, and if you want, we've got a new album coming out soon, or whatever, you know. And we'll get to the last song, and Luke will be like, all right, darlings, this is the last song. And Harry's like, I want to see you motherfuckers get up. And it's like, Harry, it's a goth gig, not a metalcore gig. There's not going to be a fucking mosh pit, all right? People are going to be dancing. And like Luke, whenever he does that, Luke's like, what he means to say is if any lovely people would like to come to the front for the final song. It's always fun. It always makes me laugh. Simultaneously, I'm like, oh, Harry, you should probably stop doing that because it's a fucking goth band. But on the other hand, I'm like, keep doing it because it's really funny. Sorry. Point is, I'm singing, and Luke's like, well, fuck it. If he's just going to sing anyway, then I'm going to jam the microphone in his face so that people can hear him. So he would come over and, like, you know, put his arm around and put the mic between both of us, and then I'd sing whilst playing as well, and then they could hear both of us. So that was actually a fairly decent experience for getting used to it. But then, this happened a few more times throughout the gig, and as the gig's going on, more people are kind of coming to the front and dancing and stuff. They're getting more and more into it. It then gets to the last song on the album, which is Nocturnal, right? We have one more song after that for live performances, which is our cover of Enjoy the Silence, but the last song of the album is Nocturnal, and if the crowd hated us, we would not then play Enjoy the Silence. Enjoy the Silence is like an encore, basically. But Nocturnal would be the last one. Now, Nocturnal, I like the song, you know, I kind of have to, I sung it on the album. But it's never been particularly big in live performances. People don't usually get too into it, which, you know, it's not for everyone. That's fine. I hold no grudges about that. But I do acknowledge the fact that I look up and people usually aren't way into it. They don't hate it, but they're not way into it. But yeah, so we're playing Nocturnal live, and when we play Nocturnal live, Luke sings. I don't sing. For all the reasons I said previously, I don't sing. Luke does it. But even though on the album I sing it. And Luke has always turned to me and said, it's kind of awkward singing this song because I'm used to you singing it, so it's really hard for me to perform it. And I guess I did notice once or twice when playing the song, I was like, yeah, Luke's not quite familiar with the song because you're more familiar with a song you worked on, personally. You know, he doesn't play instruments. He did do some vocals for Nocturnal, certainly, but verses and stuff, he put down a foundation for me to work off of and then never did vocals for it again, except for in live performances. So with that in mind, I was like, I'm going to sing this one off the microphone as well. And I reckon he might be able to hear me slightly, and then that'll provide him with a bit of a guideline on how to sing it. So I was doing that. I didn't even know if that was working, right? I don't know if he can hear me. He's like 2 meters away. That's probably too far for him to hear me. But I was like, I'll do it anyway because of all the other reasons I normally sing off the microphone anyway. But it might also help. I don't know. But he's singing it. He's doing a great job, honestly. I have no complaints. Like, Luke does a great job on vocals in general. So I was just like, oh, cool. Yeah, he's doing fine. I'm just going to keep singing because I feel like it. And this is an easy song to play, so I can kind of sing and play. But eventually got to the point where, well, I guess Luke noticed I was doing this, and he's noticed throughout the entire gig that I'm doing this, and he was like, in his head, I think, he was like, fuck it, this is Foreman's song, in that he does the vocals for this on the album. So, coming up to the end of the song, right, there's like a build-up bit, and then we do the chorus over and over again towards the end of the song, and then it ends. He gives me his microphone. He basically just plonks his microphone in front of me and adjusts it so it's at my mouth whilst I'm singing and playing, and I'm like, oh, kind of singing and playing. And then when I see him do that, I'm like, okay, I have to sing now. I actually have to sing now, and I can't be worried about if the bass sounds all right, because it would be more awkward if he put the microphone in front of my face and I didn't sing and there were no vocals than if the bass was slightly off. But he did that. He grabbed Harry's microphone, who the sound engineer had turned off because he saw what Luke was doing, putting the microphone in front of me, and was like, right, he's focusing on the bassist's vocals now, so I'm going to cut everything else. Luke grabs Harry's microphone. Harry goes into the crowd to, like, play with the crowd as well. He's playing guitar with them and, like, dancing with them or whatever. Good move on his part. And I sung, like, the last fucking 40% of that song live whilst playing bass, which was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. And felt super cool. And I said before, they're like, oh, people aren't generally into Nocturnal. They were this evening. I don't know why. I'm really not going to attribute that to my vocals because I think I did good, but I don't think they're that good. I don't know what it was, but people were way into it this evening. And like, I'm singing on the microphone that's actually on. Luke is screaming into the microphone that doesn't work anymore because it doesn't work anymore. It's been turned off. So he's absolutely bellowing the lyrics so that he can be kind of heard, basically providing a background, like backing vocal to what I'm doing now. And I just sort of looked up as I was, you know, singing and playing and saw that like everyone in the room is fucking dancing and shit, and like that was the best. That was the best. That was the best gig experience I've had so far. That was so much fun. It felt great. Like, it felt super fun. I think the way we did it was the best in the sense that Luke just kind of randomly decided to put the microphone in front of my face. So I think if he was like, right, you're singing Nocturnal from now on, I'd be like, oh no. I'd get too in my own head about it and be like, okay, I have to do a good job on this, and I have to sing it. Whereas if Luke's like, oh, okay, I'll just kind of, you know, bring the microphone over to you every now and then, I can kind of swing with it, as it were. I can kind of be like, yeah, I can sing this part, or I can do this bit, or I can do backing vocals, I can do stuff. But I think I would be too in my own head to do an entire song on vocals, either whilst playing bass or even without my bass. Because the original plan, way back when, was I would sing Nocturnal and Luke would play bass for that song. Because Luke can play bass, he wrote the fucking bass lines. Or at least some of them. But I'm not sure I'm ready for that. I'm not sure. And I like being a bassist. I like playing bass. I enjoy being the bassist. I also enjoy doing backing vocals, I suppose, so I guess I'll be happy to do that in the future, but I do like being a bassist, and I also am not angling to be the center of attention at any given time. I've already got my own show. I'm good. You know, that's me being the center of attention, and as we discussed earlier, I'm not even used to that. Like, at all. So, yeah, I'm not looking to be the center of attention in the band as well. I always see that as being Luke, which he doesn't like because he's the center of attention in 3 bands, because he's the front man for all 3, and he's like, I'd really like to just not be that for one band. And I'm like, I understand, but you are the best at it. It's the thing. He's been a front man for so long that he is the best at it. He moves around, he talks to the audience, he flounces about, and he's very performative. He's very good at that. And yeah, no, he kind of has to. Unfortunately, he needs to find a band where someone else is the vocalist so that he can hang back. That's the thing. That's what he needs to do. But then he would have 4 bands. And I think 3 bands is already too many for anyone. But 4? We'd have to quit his job. So one of them better start making money. But yeah, the experience of being a musician has been a very strange one. I guess my circumstances were also quite strange in becoming a musician, in that I was a musician for 3 months before my first gig. And, you know, within a year, or just over a year of existing, Velvet Dead has put out 2 albums for a total of like 16 or 17 songs, I think we have out at the moment. Between the first album and the second album. We've got a lot going on. It's cool. But what I really appreciate more than anything else is that now, I think from now until the end of the year, we don't have any gigs. And I'm like, cool, I don't need to be stressed about that anymore. Because I'm always a little bit stressed leading up to each gig. Not nervous, because I'm like, look, I'll get on stage and I can play well enough that it won't be a disaster from my perspective. Even though I do fuck up sometimes on stage, let me be clear. Not perfect, far from it. But I'm not nervous, it's just stressful, where I'm like, okay, well, I need to think about how I'm going to record videos this week and get everything sorted, and I need to make sure I get in big practices before the gig, to make sure I play properly, and it's a lot. So having a break from that for a little bit will be nice, especially since over the last month it's been puppies, then gig. I was like, it's a bit overwhelming, it's been a bit much, and I got sick again, obviously, as I mentioned. It's a bit much all going on at once, so yeah, I was a little bit, it's a relief now for all that to be over. But yes, the experience of being a musician has been very strange, but very cool as well. The main appeal to me before I started to enjoy the gigs more was simply the fact that I was in a band. It was the novelty. It was the feeling of like, I'm a bassist. I'm in a band. I'm a band member. That's the thing I do. I've talked to Buffy about this before, but I really enjoy the idea of having loads of different titles, you know? Different things that you can do. Like, hey, I'm Foreman. I'm a YouTube presenter. I'm a bassist in a goth band. I'm a dog dad. I've been a decorator, I've been a water treatment engineer, like, I fucking love video games, strategy game extraordinaire, you know, like, having all of these different things that you can attribute to yourself, like, who are you? Oh, I'm a tailor, I can sew, I can knit, or, oh, I'm a really fucking good footballer and also a builder. Like, the idea of having loads of different titles, different things you can do, is very cool. I've always liked the idea of that, and I love the idea of being a presenter and a bassist. 2 different kinds of performers, as it were. And that's very fun. I like that a lot. I want to collect more titles, but I don't know where to go. And also, now's not really the time leading up to Christmas. But I want to look into it, because I think there's some cool stuff to learn. And skills to acquire and things to do. But not right now. Right now, I'm going to go play Final Fantasy 14 because I just downloaded it or re-downloaded it because I played it like 6 years ago, and now I've re-downloaded it and I want to play it because it looks really fucking cool, and I remember enjoying it back then, and apparently it's better now. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to bid you all a thank you so much for watching, or listening, as the case may be. This is probably the longest Foreman talk so far, going by the time on Audacity right now, but this was a good one. There was a lot to talk about. I really could have split this into 2 videos, I reckon, but nah, I'm happy with a nice long one, you know? Obviously, we're continuing with Limbus Company at the moment with Canto 7. We've started Vampire the Masquerade, and we do need to finish Phoenix Wright, and I will. That is coming. Don't worry. I'm not going to abandon it. Just, you know, I'm going to be doing it very begrudgingly. But that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching. Listening, whatever. Special thanks to our members and patrons: Tony the Horse, Cryolytic, Abyssal Angie, B-Chan, Grand Captain General Peace, Beanbag Turtle, Malignant Humor, Zanael, Cuds, Kana Samaria, Poe, Pork Chocolate Brex, Lifesteal, Mega Mr. Z-Man, Clever Name, Lumen, Summercat, Flanny, Pinch Dragoon, Lila the Haxai, Liv Potatoes, Proxy, Caminera, Moa, Heartland, Harik J, Dresso, Sion Distance, Lol, Etherbin, Linky, Xeon Cedar, Bimblewards, Majoko Maimoon, Alkia, Honeydew, Sweet Baby Red, Jess Kissy, Plutonium Pie, Dreamer Ghost, Slap Lullaby, K-Bub, Magic Owl, The Frostbite, Monsoon, SCP-106A, Namad, and Kenny T800 for supporting me on Patreon. Thank you so much, guys, and on YouTube, and thank you all so much for watching and listening, whatever. I think I finally did my voice in. I think I ended the Foreman Talks at the exact right moment. Yeah, similar to Ace Attorney, how I often do my throat in there as well. I think once I've finally gotten over this series of colds, my throat will start to recover more, and it'll be a bit stronger. I still drink honey tea regularly, but maybe I need to take more measures. I don't know. But that's the thought for another time. Let me know what you think of today, as it were. Look, if you've ever considered doing these things, like being a YouTube presenter or being a musician, I strongly encourage you to just fucking do it. And I know everyone says that and it's whatever, but no, actually just fucking do it. Get on with it. Just start. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll be good at it. That is literally it. I wish I could give you a more detailed, complicated answer that would give you all the answers you need, but the reality of the situation is just do it. Just do it and you'll get good at it. Do anything, you'll get good at it. Any game, any pursuit, you can just get good at it. It happens. You can do it. Barring certain physical, disabilities and stuff which might prevent you from such things, at which point, truly, my condolences, and I do apologize. But if you are able-bodied and can, you should. Pick up titles. Develop new things. Become the person you want to be. Become someone you can be proud of. That was what motivated me, was to become a person that I wanted to be. Because I wasn't a person I wanted to be, and then I became a person I wanted to be, and I got there by doing things. I appreciate this is a different message to how I started this fucking episode, because it was just talking about being these things. But I fucking love being these things, and I'm so much happier now that I am these things. And that's why I feel it is so important to do these things if you want to do them. If you don't want to do them, then don't, whatever. The problem solves itself, right? But if you do want to do them, then do them. Just do them. Just do them. I know. Money, time, effort, the mental block of, I don't know if I can, or confidence and stuff. I know. But if it's within your power to do it, then do it. That is all I've got for you. I'm not a fucking guru. I wish I had more for you, but I don't. That's all I've got. If I can help, then let me know. But I don't know what I could do. I don't have any money, so I can't help you financially. But if you need advice, I can do that. That's a thing I can provide. But regardless, thank you so much for watching and or listening, and whatever we talk about next time, hope I see you there. Toodles. Goodbye.